Hello from my Airbnb in Buenos Aires, Argentina. This is my second time here because I loved it so much the first time that I wanted to come back. Now, if you've never been to Buenos Aires or Argentina, I wanted to put together a quick tips video because it may be really helpful. First of all, Buenos Aires is huge. So you're gonna wonder, where should you stay? If it's your first time, I highly recommend the areas of either Recoleta or one of the Palermo neighborhoods. There's a lot of them, Palermo Soho, Palermo Hollywood, it goes on and on. The reason I like them is they're safe and they're centrally located, really easy to get around. Belgrano is another wonderful and very residential neighborhood to stay in. However, it is quite far from the center and it will easily take you about 1 hour to get to any of the central areas if you're using local transportation from Belgrano. Something to note about accommodation here is when you go and look for a place to stay, you will quickly find out that there are actually not a lot of hotels here in Buenos Aires. So you're more than likely going to rent an apartment instead of a hotel room. Depending on your budget, depending on what you want, there are some hotels, definitely, but the bulk of properties here are apartments. So when you decide how to book, I would recommend Airbnb here. Contrary to what I've seen in some other countries, it works better here than booking.com. And I have found the cleaning fees and the extra fees here lower than, some of the other countries where when you add everything together, you're paying so much money, it's not worth it. So prices are good, but more importantly, when it comes to payment, if booking.com is not handling the payment for you, meaning they're not charging your credit card before you get to the accommodation and they say the amount, you've guaranteed your booking with your credit card, but you're gonna actually pay when you get there, you could potentially run into situations where the owner of the property expects you to pay in cash even though you've saved your booking on a credit card. So if you want to be sure that you can charge your accommodation here for your apartment, I recommend Airbnb because then all the transaction is taken care of through Airbnb and it works better. At least that has been my experience. Remember that the seasons are reversed from North America. It's now May here and it's getting kind of chilly because they're going into autumn. Last time in 2019, I was in Buenos Aires in July and it was -2 degrees. And I think that was Fahrenheit. So it was freezing. It does get really cold here. The north, of course, is a giant country. The north is warmer. Iguazu is always warm. And the south is colder, of course, because it's close to Antarctica. Let's talk money because that is a huge subject here. You may have heard it's crazy inflation. In 2019, when I got here, it was about 54 pesos for $1. Today, the rate fluctuates between 800 and 1,000 pesos to the dollar. And you'd think that would be amazing, except with the high inflation, things got really expensive. Now you're gonna get varying rates. This is really important. If you use an ATM, you'll get the worst exchange rate of all. If you use a cambio, you can get pretty good rates. Now I'm wearing my pockets vest because I just got back from the cambio because you have to stuff the cash somewhere hidden, so of course you don't become a target for theft. That being said, it's not like there's a lot of theft that I've seen here, but you do want to protect yourself. Never use the guys in the street that come out and say, cambio, cambio, cash, cash. Make sure to use a legitimate exchange store with a store front. If you do use an ATM, that is a total journey and an experience in itself. You may have to try several banks to find one that accepts your card. Or you may find you were trying to use the ATM machine that was for clientes, the bank's clients, and you need to use the ATM distributor that's for non-clients. Also, once you figure out that your card works, the next adventure is figuring out how much cash can you withdraw at any one point, because it's not much. At the airport, I was able to withdraw 50,000 pesos, which is the equivalent of roughly $50. In town, however, I cannot seem to find any ATM so far that will let me take out more than 40,000 pesos at one time, or roughly $40. So if you want to get the equivalent of $100, then you're going to have to do multiple withdrawals. And every time you do a withdrawal, you're going to be charged by that local bank about $10 US per transaction. So hopefully you have one of those cards that writes off the transaction fees, because they are high. Another thing is machines literally run out of money, and at the weekend especially, you may not be able to find any cash. Here's why. As of this video, there are only 1,000 notes available, so you're carrying around wads of cash, which is again why I'm carrying this jacket. But also think about the fact that the ATM distributors have to put all that money in there, and they can only hold so much. And with everyone doing multiple withdrawals, you get the idea. So if the ATM thing isn't working out for you, you can also create a Western Union account and then send yourself money. If you're American, you'll need to set up an American account and then transfer the money to yourself in Argentina. However, not all of the Western Unions have enough cash either. I did use a great Facebook group I recommend for advice, the Buenos Aires expat group on Facebook. And in there I found out that the Western Union on Peru Street always has money and doesn't have long waits. Now, a good reason to have all this cash is because most vendors here are going to give you a discount for using cash. And sometimes it's a significant discount. If you're going to local markets, yeah, you definitely want to have cash on hand if you can. If not, they should be charging you a 10% rate for the credit card, but sometimes they charge more, so it's really their decision. If you do pay with a credit card, there are often times you can expect to have to pull out your passport and a driver's license, or one or the other, especially like if you go to the post office. Bear that in mind, it's an inconvenience of using credit cards. Now, Argentina's expensive. Back in 2019, it was a bargain, so I'm kind of shocked. But now a lot of the prices are kind of like in the USA. A meal is roughly $20 to $30. Coffee is about $4 to $5. However, transportation is cheap. So are the accommodations like Airbnb, not bad. Now, regarding transportation, the subte, which is the subway, is about 20 cents a ride. The bus is about 30 cents a ride, and the bus I found is actually usually more direct and goes more places. But hold on to your handrails because the driving is kind of crazy. To buy and refill your subte card, you do need cash. So there's another place you cannot get around the cash. You cannot use a credit card to buy it or refill it. If you do take this subte, don't make the mistake I did. If you're gonna change lines, which you probably will have to, the transfer stations have different names. I've never seen this in another city. So let's say you're on the yellow line and you wanna go transfer to the green line. Make sure that you're paying attention to the name of the station for the yellow line, because if you're looking for the name of the station for the green line you're transferring to while you're on the yellow line, you'll never find it. That's what I did. I went right by it because I never found it. This is really important. I hope that made sense because I completely messed up and went way out of my way one day because I didn't realize that. One other amazing fact about the Buenos Aires subway system, I've never seen this anywhere else in the world, is you can ride the subway if you have a negative balance on your card up to 2 rides. Uber here is also crazy awesome, like really cheap. It's almost always under $5. The most expensive one I took an hour ride was like $8. Also haircuts, really cheap here. I am going to get mine in a couple of weeks. I found a great guy when I was here in 2019. He's still cutting haircuts. If you need his information, hit me up. I'm happy to share that with you. Let's move on to food. There are 2 main food groups in Argentina: Italian and meat. Due to the huge wave of Italian immigrants into Buenos Aires in the 1800s, that explains why you're gonna see pizza and pasta everywhere. And of course, the other main food group is meat. And typically that's gonna be an asado or a parrilla. So that's basically, an asado is often a mixed meat grill, and parrilla stands for grilled. So you're gonna see grilled meat available everywhere. That's meat, sausage, pork, chicken, etc. If you do want a cheap meal, go for the empanadas. They're really pretty good, and you can eat 3 or 4 of them for under $5. Now, if you go to the supermarket as a strategy, a smart strategy to save money, note that all the products seem to be labeled in like big letters, you know, too much sugar, too much salt. It kind of makes you feel bad for buying food. At least it did me. And also, cheese here is kind of bland. Kind of makes me miss the pungent, stinky cheese of France. Just saying. Let's talk about your phone and your filming your YouTube videos. Here are my thoughts, and this is really important. While in Buenos Aires, I recommend that you don't take videos like I'm doing right now where you're talking to the camera. I'm only doing it here in the Japanese garden because to get in you have to have paid, so I'm trusting that nobody's going to take my phone because most other people here are tourists taking their own pictures. But for the most part, you do not want to walk around the streets of Buenos Aires with your phone in hand, talking at it, making clear that you are a YouTuber or other influencer and filming videos like this. And the reason for that is that someone may take your phone out of your hand. Friends I know that live here recommended strongly that I don't film videos like this while I'm here. On the flip side, of course, like everywhere else in the world, most people here are having their cell phones out as they walk along the street and in the subte or the subway, so there is high cell phone usage, but just be careful and be very mindful when you're using yours in public. One thing I have not seen once in over 2 weeks in Buenos Aires is, again, I've seen one person talking like this on a side street somewhere in Buenos Aires. Nobody is holding like a tripod or a gimbal and filming as they go through the streets. Not one person, so it says a lot. Language. As you know, in Argentina, they speak Spanish. So I highly recommend that you learn some Spanish. But even if you do, don't expect to understand it well here. It is a very different Spanish. They often use vos instead of tú, and the double L, which might be Y usually, is je. So parrilla is 2 L's, right? After some times, it gets easier, but it is different. Like sometimes I'm from Nueva York, and sometimes I'm from Nueva York. Mattresses in Argentina tend to be quite firm. I love that. I sleep like a baby on them. But if you're someone that prefers really soft mattresses, you may have a harder time coming by them when you are. I've found them in Airbnbs, guest houses, everywhere I've been. All the mattresses have been pretty firm, so just a heads up. Throughout Argentina, it seems like the insulation between walls and street is not terribly good. The glass that's used in most of the windows doesn't seem to be double paned. Sometimes it's old glass. Buildings also can be very old, especially in Buenos Aires, but even when you travel and stay in lodging with people in rooms adjacent to each other, you'll probably hear a lot of noise. And certainly in the Airbnbs I've stayed in Buenos Aires, the noise, I could hear it from all sides of me. So a tip, bring earplugs. Wow, they work wonders. I don't hear anything with my earplugs in, but you'll definitely, if you're a light sleeper especially, you will need to bring your earplugs to Argentina. Another thing to consider is that the shades usually are not room darkening. I've had a couple of exceptions. It looks like this room actually has some pretty good darkening and 2 sets of curtains, but on average, I found that the room darkening is not so much of a feature in most places that I've stayed. So I also have an eye mask that I sleep in. So another handy tip, bring your eye mask to Argentina. A final tip from the Buenos Aires airports, you cannot change your pesos into dollars, euros, whatever, in the bank here unless you've got your money at the same bank and can prove it. So make sure that you exchange your pesos for whatever currency you want when you're leaving Argentina in Argentina, like before you get to the airport in Buenos Aires or whatever city you're in, go to a cambio or whatever and change it there. Otherwise, like me, you're just stuck with whatever pesos you have left, unless you go shopping here, and that's about all you can do with it. So that's a wrap on my tips for Buenos Aires. Make sure to give the video a like, and also if you're interested in finding out whether full-time travel might be possible for you, make sure to take the quiz that lets you know. I'll put the link in the description, and I will see you on the next video. Bye-bye.